Alright guys, welcome back. So we are going to resume having a look at these Alliance tournament games so that we could possibly get a better idea of who are the leading PvP teams as of this current meta. So right now the ones that have won is this, I'm not sure if it's Korean or Japanese, NLNS, and then there's Dream, and then there's A-Force Destiny, and then I believe this is a Korean team, Team SA, and on the losing end we have Eternals, Wanted S, the new meta, and Korea. So now we're pretty much in the semifinals. It's about 10 hours left, and we have got quite a lot of attacks from Dream. As we see, these guys are pretty much the overall all-time record holders of being the best alliance. They have 70 alliance wins in the Hall of Fame, as you guys can see. They are way ahead of everyone else, and they pretty much own most of the meta. And then on this side we have A-Force and Team SA, who are respectable in their own regard, but of course SA has got way more trophies and wins, and A-Force has got 2, but they always end up close to winning as well. So now let's just go ahead and have a look at Dream and see how they plan out their attacks, their victories and their failures, just to understand what the top meta of PvP looks like. So here you're going to have a first match. So the previous video, if you guys watched, was a lot of Spider-Man that we saw, especially with the stealth suit, and it was a good way for me to emphasize on how useful it is actually in the PvP meta of Conquest and Alliance Tournament, which is kind of a niche game mode. So here we have Strife and Nick Fury filling up the support roles. We don't have a Spider-Man here. There's a lot of cluster that you guys may or may not be able to tell of what's really happening, but more so it's easier to observe the buffs that are taking place. And as you guys saw, this Jean was taking a lot of debuffs just now for a brief second, and that usually happens because her leadership has already triggered. There's like an 8-second gap before it triggers again, so during that gap a lot of buffs get applied to the Jean Grey. And right now she's gone into her ultimate skill, Revelation, which gives her the invincibility, which means she will not be able to be debuffed or anything of that sorts, but they can still pierce her. And as you can see, this Jean is still holding her own, standing up to 3 heroes previously and then now 2, but I think eventually she will go down to the timer and the other team will win. So yeah, that's the end of the match. They did manage to bring the Jean down, but yes, it was a time defeat because the Jean was still going to revive anyway. So just now the Nick Fury definitely gave a lot of damage boost, but Strife, I guess, kind of falls off in the maximum damage meta. He doesn't seem to survive as well as some of the other characters. I've noticed this a lot. Wait, is this the same one? I think this is the same. There must have been a new attack that came in. So let's just have a look at this one, TS Killer God, and then we'll see if there is anything different. So as for those of you who don't have Strife, don't fret. Oh yeah, so it is pretty much the same kind of team. So let's have a look at this one, Tank versus Nanvo, to see what else these guys use. So these guys might also have a Strife, maybe Nick Fury, some even Doctor Doom. Nonetheless, we'll get to see some of these top PvP meta characters. So as of now, we have Jean, Thanos as like by default. We have a lot of Nick Furies coming in. We have CM here, someone we have not seen in a while in tournament. Nonetheless, the NLNS is using her, and she's doing a lot of dangerous damage, but once the debuff removal kicks in, it didn't kick in quick enough. Jean died the first time. She's back, and then I believe Thanos, yeah, this Thanos is going down. CM is still alive, which is very, very threatening, because she'll probably, I think she did get her her ultimate, I couldn't tell, but she's down anyway for the count. Both the Jeans have not got their ultimates off yet, so that'll most likely be the decider of this fight. Just waiting for the Jeans to hit it. Interesting. This Jean Grey is able to like survive for the longest time. She's got like 300k max health. This one's got nearly 900k, but I believe it's due to a buff from the cards, which is a high possibility. But regardless, it is a very unique win where this Jean managed to just hold her own long enough to survive against the opponent, Nick Fury and Thanos. Really surprising match, actually. But yeah, that was a very unique, close fight, I would say. It'll be really nice if we had a lot more of those types. Pretty entertaining. So let's have a look at this one and see what they have. Now we're gonna have another Strife and a Nick Fury this time. So let's just observe these incapacitation resist. That is from the CTP of regeneration. This Jean, on the other hand, is using a destruction CTP. Not ideal for the top meta, and as you can see, she doesn't survive as a result of that. So this Jean seems to be debuffed, I think, for an instance. But her debuff removal triggered, and now she's getting her skills back. She seems to not be using her 5th for some reason. But yeah, that's interesting. She's not using her 5th, and she's getting debuffed really bad. She might go down here. Oh no, her CTP has triggered. Her debuff removal has triggered. The other Jean is down. And this Thanos is just gonna get ragdolled right now by, you know, the Jean and the other Thanos. She used Revelation, crazy damage. That's the end of the match. I guess if the Jean gets the Revelation off, it's pretty much GG to the opposing side, unless you have another Jean with a revive. So that was also interesting. So another Nick Fury and a Strife. These guys don't have that much CM and Spider-Man, I believe. They don't have any Ant-Man either. They have one Deadpool finally. Let's see how this Deadpool performs in this meta. Strife is like so close to death almost immediately, and he's dead. Wow. I guess Strife is kind of a glass cannon at the higher levels of the meta. But we did have this Jean pull off quite a lot of damage. So she's using a CTP destruction, then we have a CTP of regen on the opposing side. We'll see how it goes because only this Jean is left, but I believe yeah, she will not be able to survive against 3 heroes. So that was unfortunate. I think the Strifes really struggle at the highest level. So let's just go down and check out min 0910. Let's see how this goes. We have another Strife here and another Deadpool on opposing teams. We'll see what exactly kills him. So he has a regen CTP as well, but he still dies almost like in less than 5 to 10 seconds. And then what is this? We have what is this? Really, a custom gear on this Deadpool. That's hilarious. This Deadpool doesn't have a CTP, surprisingly, but nonetheless he seems to have held his own, but eventually goes down to the damage of Thanos and Jean. Then this one Thanos is probably not going to be able to take out the two of them. Even a 1v1 against this Jean would have been questionable, but I guess 2v1, no chance. So that was interesting. Nonetheless, the Strife went down really fast, and the Deadpool without a CTP managed to hold on for a bit, but still eventually went down. Let's see what Sienna SE has and how this one went. So these are like the top PvP meta characters. You get to see a lot of these. There's another Deadpool here with another. This one is another custom gear, apparently not a CTP, but this Deadpool did not survive long enough. I guess there's too much damage coming in from this Jean. As you can see, her HP is really high. It's double that of this Jean, and so is this Thanos. So this is kind of an overkill attack, I would say. Probably they just had someone extra, and then they were like, no, you know what? Just go ahead for the weak guy. We don't need him. But let's go ahead and look some of these attack fails, because these are the interesting ones where the players they do scout out for their opponents first, right? So they know that they probably have an upper hand, which is why they attack. But now we'll get to see why they lost that attack. So here we see Strife on the NS side dying instantaneously. So did the CM. These two are pretty much glass cannons, I would say. The other Strife on the opposing team is dead. Even in a 3v1, and then now Jean is just getting bombarded by the opponent Jean and Thanos. I don't know what this guy was thinking going into this fight, but I guess this is what an attack fail really looks like. So here he's gonna come back. Alright, it's gonna just take on the two of them. So there are several other possibilities as well, right, for an attack fail. One of the other possibilities is that your allies have just taken all the other attacks and you're told to attack this particular guy that you don't want to. It could have been a decision made for him by someone else. But yeah, I mean, sometimes that happens. So you know, that's also a possibility. Let's look at this one. Dark Fence Xian has failed an attack against Crazy Queen. Let's have a look at this one. Because the victories are quite obvious. You just target them, you know you're gonna win, and then you do it. But when you fail, that's interesting, because that means you targeted, but you know, it just was poor planning, or the opponent has surprised you, which would have been most of the case, I guess. Once again, Strife going down first, no surprise there. Jean following after, but she's gonna revive herself back up, start off with the 5th right away. And then get the 3rd as well. She's gonna do so much damage right now with that. And then wow, she just blew up like 3 of the enemies, I guess. So it's just now Thanos and Jean apparently like outnumbering the opponent Jean. So this was interesting. It started off with the Strife going down first, but now the two of them are just gonna take on this one Jean 2v1, and that's most likely gonna be either a timeout win or an actual kill on the... I think the Jean is too strong. She's like... yeah, she's way too tanky. She's getting so many debuffs, but she's just removing them. Crazy debuff removal. Yeah, it's the time that's gonna help them. Man, that Jean was literally indestructible. She's so hard to kill. But yeah, another timeout win, which is really nice to see. A very close call. Let's have a look at this one against Nanwo. It's an attack fail as well. So once again, we're going to look for what really went against the plan. We're going to see another Strife, and let's just see if the Strife goes down again. So we have a CM as well. CM's gonna die. She's not gonna be able to survive that cluster. Another Strife that went down, and another Strife. As you guys can see, the Strifes and CMs don't really survive at the top level of PvP because of all the AoE that is hitting them. And you know, the debuff removals are not gonna help them against raw damage, so they just die. Now it's just this Jean holding her own against in a 2v1 fight against Thanos and Jean. I think this is pretty much said and done. She's just gonna go ahead and get wrecked. It's not much she can do. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, CMs and Strifes do not really survive for the most part. Deadpool has a lot more survivability, but I guess he eventually will fall as well. But still, better than Strife and CM by all regard in terms of survivability, but maybe not damage output. So here we have a Deadpool and a CM, and a Nick Fury on the opposing end supporting the Jean. The Jean dies almost instantaneously, and the Deadpool follows right after. I guess this one just couldn't hang in there. CM's gonna fall. That was a wipe. So this could have been one of those like forced attacks. I'm not sure. Let's just go ahead and see what exactly I clicked on. So Let's see. Alright, it was this one, right? Nick LYC that failed an attack. So yeah, it could have been like we don't have a choice, you have to attack, or it could have just been overconfidence, or maybe not scouting, which I highly doubt. These guys do scout their opponents. It's pretty obvious. So let's see a dream player here failing an attack against one of the opponents. So let's see what exactly happened here. So yeah, I mean, these are the top meta on this end. Finally, we get to see a Spider-Man apparently coming out on the NLNS side, and then Strife just vanishes from the fight at like the very start, and then Nick Fury is doing a lot of support damage as well. Wow, the Gene went down apparently. Nick goes down. So it's just Spider-Man and Gene versus Gene and Thanos. And look at that Spider-Man just outperforming two native tier 2s. That's insane. His new uniform really changes the way he does damage and the speed of his attacks, allowing him to do so much damage output that they're not able to keep up with it. And this Gene, as you can see, slightly lower HP than the opponent. It could have just been the way she's built, but this one has I believe, an authority CTP and damage accumulation. But yeah, Spider-Man survives to the very end. No surprise there. Top tier PvP right now. But yeah, not Strife or CM. So that's interesting. Some attacks from Dream against NLNS. Let's just have a look at what these 9 attacks and how these went for A-Force Destiny. So once again, we're going to look for the failed attacks because there we probably will see a closer match. So yeah, let's just go for the first one. Here we have a Spider-Man right away on the side of A-Force against this Nick Fury. I believe this was on the losing side of the team, so let's just see how it went. We have a lot of damage coming out from that Gene. My god, the Gene on the SA side. And Thanos dies from just taking too much. So yeah, a lot of the time, if you can't follow what's happening on the screen, you can obviously see some familiar skills, which is Gene's 5th, very obvious. You can see Thanos when he pulls out his 5th, pretty obvious as well. And just look for the buffs for the rest of the part and you know what really is happening. That's all you gotta know. So Spider-Man goes down from the sheer damage of Thanos and Gene. There's way too much for him to handle right now. And Gene is just gonna get outnumbered and outflanked by these 3. Look at Nick Fury just like reloading his gun to get ready to like bash Gene. Yeah, and then Gene is back up and he calls in his own Captain Marvel to finish off the fight. Interesting how the Nick Fury actually managed to survive really long, but he could have been really well built. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Let's see this one. VNG Tam or Gia Thumb having another failed attack here. Let's see what happened. So this one has another Spider-Man. I guess these A-Force Destiny, these guys really like their Spider-Man, and the SA team, they like their Nick Furies. So nonetheless, both interesting to see. As we can see, the Spider-Man managed to survive long enough just to get a lot of damage going in, and then he finally falls. And then on this side, the other opposing team, the Nick Fury, falls. So it's just the tanks, Gene and Thanos, surviving the fight right now. This is pretty much a head-on. Who's Thanos and who's Gene is better. So unfortunately, this Thanos falls. There's too much damage coming on from this side, and then in a 2v1, it's pretty much decided. There's little this Gene is going to be able to do. So she's just going to take a lot of damage. And wait, did she? Oh, she got Revelation off, which is why she's surviving so long. I'm surprised. Yeah, so Revelation kept her in for the fight a little longer. But I guess now there's nothing. Yeah, it's nothing to protect her. But this is going to be a timeout. Pretty interesting. The Gene held her own because of Revelation, which I think if not for it, she would have gone down a lot sooner. That was pretty cool actually. So let's see what Fury's brown eye. So yeah, there's this guy, A-Force player. he's got an interesting set of characters and profile. You guys can check him out. Pretty well built. So he's gonna. This is a failed attack, I believe. So we have a Spider-Man and Fury once again on opposing ends, and this time it's gonna be so much damage from the two Thanos, getting off both their fifth. This Gene is getting really low. Fury goes down first. And then what is that actually? Oh, that was the Spider-Man getting off his webbing. Apparently, that was quite surprising. But he managed to get his webbing off during the gap between the debuff removal. So that actually gave a lot of time for the Gene to do some work. But apparently, this Gene is just too strong. 900k HP, and you know, the proc of that card that gives you HP when attacked. I guess it's something to take note of. If you guys have been building your cards, there's actually a buff that allows you to increase your team's HP when you get attacked, and apparently it's quite meta. So if you guys can roll one of those, go ahead. Or if you accidentally rolled it, don't change it for, you know, energy attack or all attack, because it still plays a big role in these fights. So let's just scroll down a little bit and look at what's this Mabu Mapu. Yeah, we were looking at Brown Eye. Let's see at Lin Tao. See what this VN Lin Tao did. Alright. So it's Thanos and Gene at the very top. It's pretty obvious. And right now they are followed by Fury and Spider-Man. I don't think Strife and CM are anywhere close to them. They are definitely below because they are kind of glass cannons. They don't survive as well for most of the fights. Deadpool is pretty well up there as well. I think the three speeds, Spider-Man, Deadpool and Nick Fury, kind of follow up Gene and Thanos in Conquest and Alliance tournament, but not necessarily in Timeline, because as I said in my previous video, Timeline is a little bit different because it's a 1v1, therefore skills like crowd controls and certain other abilities don't really work that well. Like here, Spider-Man's webbing could hit all three and it could change the fight, but in a 1v1 that need not happen, because, you know, if debuff removal triggers or Spider-Man doesn't get his fifth off, he dies and you don't see that character fully play out. It's kind of similar to Thanos as well. If Thanos has used his fifth, and then his fifth will only hit one character, as opposed to three in Conquest or Tournament. So yeah, these are pretty much the top right now. So I'm just gonna go ahead and create a text here to kind of give you guys an idea of what the top PvP is. So I'm just gonna put top PvP characters, and then I'm gonna put here is definitely Gene, followed by Thanos. Then I believe that it's kind of between Spider-Man and Nick Fury, but because of Spider-Man's offensive ability, he kind of still stands up there. And then there's Nick Fury, and this is followed by, it's between kind of Deadpool and Strife, but I would say Deadpool, just because if he manages to get his all defense down and he doesn't get debuffed right away or something like that, there's still a lot of damage and he survives pretty well. So then we have the Strifes. Is that correct? I believe that's correct. I'm not sure. Yeah, so yeah, you have the Stripes, and then we have the Captain Marvels. So these are kind of the top PvP right now. Let me just up that font for you guys to 50. Oops, that's a little bit too much, maybe 100. Yeah, let's just put that at 100. Let's get a bit of outline. Let's get a black outline, and let's get that up there. Yep, I think that's okay. So yeah, these are kind of the top PvP meta characters, as we can see from most of these tournament matches. So let's just go ahead and have a look at a few more before we validify this list once and for all. So let's just go to like really early attacks by Dream and NLNS. and see what this fail was. Ryan. See what Ryan did here. So this is Deadpool once again against an opposing Nick Fury. These guys don't really have their Spider-Man up. I believe they built their Deadpools mostly because you can use him for PvE really well as opposed to Spider-Man. Oh, Deadpool explodes right there from the damage from the Thanos. And then we're gonna have this Jean revive and try to hold her own. Okay, Nick Fury goes down. So it's kind of the other characters that always fall out first, and the only ones that always survive in the end are either Jean or Thanos. So these two are pretty much the only ones that can tank through PvP. So it's really nice to know. So okay, so that was done. Now let's go back to another one of the fights on the other side. Because I believe these guys have a little bit more like kind of varied roster. We have some Spider-Man, some Strife, some Nick Fury. It's not all one set team because you'll never know. For all you know, Dream is like an organization that says, no, you guys have to use this team. Everyone has to use this team as possible. Some people do that. Alright, so let's just go ahead. And yeah, we're going to see another Spider-Man and Nick Fury on opposing ends. We'll see how this one goes. So in this case, I believe the Nick Fury is going to go down first. But this Jean, she seems to have a lot of buffs up. She might be able to do a lot more than needed. Phoenix Rising, interesting. Okay, Bounce of Destiny, Resist, Super Armor. So with that Phoenix Rising buff, I guess she does quite a bit. She has not been debuffed against that, yeah, at all, ever. This Thanos managed to survive. Spider-Man is down. We're getting Endless Void. Thanos just triggered his tier 3. That's going to give him a lot of time to stay up. This is going to be really close actually. Wow. Wow. Alright, this is probably the closest match that I've seen today. Really close. It was just purely determined by the regeneration proc. So I have to say that whoever decided on this attack probably made a 50-50 call, and then it really went 50-50. That was really interesting. I've not seen a match that close in a while. But nonetheless, it was pretty much just Thanos' Jean, because the other two did not really survive long enough to show what they do well. What's this, first firmament or something like that? Let's just go ahead, see what he did or she did. We don't know, but yeah. So now we have Spider-Man on both opposing ends. They're probably going to die first, but they will still survive long enough to see a lot of damage done. Crazy damage from that 4th skill. One of the Spider-Man go down. Ooh, Thanos' 5th getting called. I believe this Thanos, one of these Thanos will eventually use Endless Void, so let's be alert for that. Guard break. So we're definitely seeing CDP of regen on all of these. Yep, all CDP of regen. Nonetheless, the Spider-Man is surviving for the longest time before he finally gets destroyed by that Revelation. Crazy damage coming out from Jean Grey. And Revelation is not a skill that you will miss, right? Thanos gets his Endless Void off, so does the other one. A lot of damage from both sides. They're getting ragdolled by the guard break of Jean's 5th. This is also going to be a timeout victory. Pretty insane how long these characters can just keep regenning and fighting and regenning. Is crazy. But yeah, the victory is given to the other Jean nonetheless, because she never went down. She stayed up the entire time. So that was pretty deserving, I would say. Alright, so to wrap this video up, we're just gonna go ahead and look at one more match. Hopefully we get an interesting one, and then we'll call it a day. So we should be able to conclude the meta list that I've created right after this. We have a Strife and Nick Fury once more. Let's just see how long this Strife survives. Did we see this match? I think we did. The Strife dies first, right? The leader Strife that dies. Yeah, he's a leader Strife that dies first. Alright, I think we saw that. Maybe I did, but oh well. Let's go down here a bit. See this one. Yeah, I think we did not see this. Okay. It's a pretty fun tournament so far. A lot more neck and neck than the ones before, but Dream still kind of holding, you know, the right to be kings in this. Nick Fury goes down first this time. Strife managed to go into his invincibility, which kept him alive another 10 seconds or so before he finally goes down. And then if Thanos falls, it's 2v1. I guess this Jean is going to eventually just lose. She will not be able to hold her own. So yeah, let's just watch. Wow, she managed to guard break the two of them for the longest time possible. But she is outnumbered. So let's just see how long she manages to survive. Revelation. Crazy. Alright, there we go. That Revelation definitely lit up the fight and took down the Jean for the first time, but she's gonna have to lose in a timeout. So yeah, Revelation, man. I mean, if you get hit by that, it's you're pretty much done for if you don't have revive. But yeah, that's pretty cool. Let's just look at this attack by Dr. Legion, because we didn't really see many fails from Dream. Let's just see what happened here. These are two Strifes on both sides. We'll see how long the Strifes survive. Alright, about 10 seconds for the first Strife. And then 15 seconds for the second Strife. So that's pretty much what I wanted to see. So yeah, kind of very much glass cannons, these Strifes and CMs. But nonetheless, they do a lot of damage, and that's pretty much the reason why they are up there in this meta. And let's just see this one. What is this? I think we saw this, but let's just check it out one more time to make sure I don't overlook any particular detail in these characters, because I don't want to be in a 50-50 kind of state. So alright, this is Spider-Man and Nick Fury. We have no Thanos for once on the team. I'm not sure if we saw this fight. We might have, but this is very interesting. We have two speeds on this side. Fury and Strife going down. Strife went down first, no surprise there. Followed by Fury. And then it's just Spider-Man and Jean versus Jean and Thanos. This will be interesting. We don't usually see Spider-Man on one end, holding his own together with the Jean. It's usually just Thanos because of his healing abilities. But I guess with the... Wait, what is this? Oh, it's a destruction. CTP or destruction. Doesn't have a regen on him, but he's managing to survive for the longest time. That's pretty crazy. So much damage from that fourth skill. Spider-Man literally won that fight. That was pretty crazy. A no Thanos team nonetheless performed really well. But I guess it kind of makes sense because Nick Fury has this ability that gives him increased damage to supervillain, right? Let me just check on that. Yeah, increased damage to supervillain. So I guess it makes sense if you have Spider-Man on your team instead of Thanos, because because this one only applies to hero allies, so it will not work on your Thanos anyway. So it's also interesting to see just Spider-Man and Nick Fury being on the team with Jean instead of having a Thanos there. So yeah, that's pretty much it from me for today. Thanks for watching. So we're just gonna go ahead and pop this text back up. So we're going to conclude this by having our kind of tier list over here. So take note that this could change from time to time. This is my own observation of what is the current meta. If you guys have your own ideas about it, do let me know. So it's pretty much Jean, Thanos, Spider-Man, Fury, followed by Deadpool, Strife, and Captain Marvel. These are the heroes in the rotation. You don't really want to see anyone else because they either don't survive or they just don't do enough damage. So that's it from me. Yep, let me know what you guys think. Adios.